Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited for this week's guest, Jessica Ella. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
For the listeners who don't know who are you and what do you do?
Oh, I knew you were going to start with that question. Who am I? That's such a big question. I'm Jessica Ella, as you said. What I do is so hard to describe, but I'll try and summarize it and make it a little bit short and punchy. I started off working with women with trauma. So the approach that I was doing, basically, I spent 15 years studying all different types of healing modalities, therapies for myself originally, just to understand healing, how it works. It eventually landed me into working one-on-one with women. The results were insane. So a friend of mine said, can you teach me how this, what are you doing? Started writing it down and created my own type of healing, my own type of therapy. And yeah, it's called Aaruka Therapy. And now I teach that. I have students all over the world, and I teach other people how to work with all levels of trauma. So very focused in on complex trauma, PTSD, personality disorders, the kind of trauma that people find really difficult to work with and to actually overcome. Anything that's a bit more complex, I love a challenge. I'm like, limiting beliefs, that's fun.
Yawn.
Let's do the really fucked up stuff, which came from my own background with a lot of trauma. So there was an element of wanting to understand it, to heal myself and to fix myself at the time. And yeah, so it did come from my own history and this kind of, I need to prove that you can heal this and uncover it for myself and then for other people. So it was coming from a wound, but what a great place to to start.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that, whatever kind of healing that you get into or coaching, it often starts from that foundational wounding, and yet at the same time, that becomes the perfect entry point to go through the healing journey on an even deeper level, because you go into needing to save and fix people on a foundational level and then transcend that to be able to just have the capacity to be able to be with people so that they can expand into it without needing them to get it. So what's been your journey of kind of shifting from that wounded place to the integrated version that you are today?
Yeah, that's been layers. It's been layers, because there have always been those parts of having high empathy and really identifying and feeling people's suffering because of that. And when you've suffered, you can see it in other people and just wanting so badly to save them. So there is there's this balance between having high empathy and learning boundaries and learning how to use that empathy in a productive, healthy way. So I guess that for me, it has been a really big journey in not absorbing everyone's energy, not taking that on, not, becoming this person that has to save everybody in the world. And it's gone in layers. The first stage was, I was like, I can't teach someone else how to do this. I want to be the one to do it, to, no, I can't help the volume of people that's so in the first year, this was before Instagram was a thing. In the first year, I had 400 people in 12 months just through word of mouth. So when Instagram started and I launched, the DMs were just, I'm suicidal, I need help, I've heard you're the person, I need help, I need help, I need help. And I would work nights and I would work weekends, and I was just self-sacrificing because I had such high empathy and I could understand their suffering, but I had no boundaries. And so I was putting everyone else's needs before my own. So there's this balance in this industry between being empathetic and understanding and helping people, but also having this standard and having these boundaries. And that for me came through identity work. It was all coming from my own wounding of not being able to hold a boundary because I don't feel that I'm worthy. I remember one of the biggest subconscious beliefs was everyone else's needs are more important than mine. And that was learned behavior from childhood. Put dad's needs before your own, you come last. And so that just rippled. And that was 10 years into the work that sort of became really clear when I was getting run down, burnt out, not able to cope. And so I've gone through these different layers of self, and using the current situations in my business as an opportunity for growth, because business, like relationships, is going to reflect so much at you of your patterns, your wounding, even your attachment style. Like it's literally the way that you function. You know, I don't know who said it, but the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And it's so true. And for me, business has been a great mirror.
What's been one of the things that you've journeyed in the reflection of that recently in business?
Recently has been stepping away from Instagram. So not many people know that I actually don't have the app. So when I message you, I've got Business Suite and I'm just literally checking for red flag messages from my assistant. I don't show up. I'm not there. And there was a huge control part of like, I need to be present. I need to share this. I need to be seeing what the comments are, what the feedback is, what are people saying in the messages. And I get a lot of hate just through the content that I share, trauma focused. There's a lot of people that are like, you're a liar. I don't believe you. This is witchcraft, whatever. And so I do get a lot of that. And I noticed I didn't really realize, there was this one day I was laying down to have a nap, which was like very unlike me. I was feeling really drained and I'm like, what is going on? So I lay down to have a nap and I noticed that there was sounds in the background, like cars and trucks and all sorts of things. And I was falling into a sleep, but every time my phone would vibrate, like the smallest sound, my whole body would go into this like nervous system, like I could feel myself activating when my phone would vibrate. And I was like, my phone's like triggering me. But all these other sounds are just happening. And so what I realized was that I actually, no matter how much work you do, it's actually not human. It's not like it's against our human nature to receive constant negative criticism and feedback. And I was just like, I actually don't need to see that. But there was this part of me, this little fucked up part of me that was like, I want to see what they're saying. So I had to work with that part to be able to release it, to delete the app, to let go of control, to release and know that those comments are being said and they're not being responded to and that doesn't matter. So that was something that really was a really hard thing to remove myself from, because there was this like defensive part that wanted to like justify and make them understand. And I had to be like, the next level version of you, there's going to be so many people who don't understand and you just have to be okay with that. But seeing it constantly is, I think even Eckhart Tolle, he said something about he hasn't for 20 years read comments because he knows that if he does, it affects his mental health. So it doesn't really matter how spiritually evolved you are, it's against our human nature. So that was a big realization for me because I'm like, why the healing work's not working? Like I got 10 hate comments today and I feel like shit. But it was like, I'm putting my energy and attention there. If I remove that, I can say whatever I want without thinking about the response. And it also helped me become even more unfiltered in what I said.
Yeah, I love that. What's been a time then that you've had to, summon more courage than any other time in business?
Summon more courage. I mean, every day. All the time. It's difficult, I think, I always say to my partner, like with my business, it was such an extension of like a really deep passion. It wasn't like, this is a good industry. I'm going to like study this and get into this industry because I'm going to make bank. It was like,
You won't last. We see those people come and go.
Yeah, they do come and go. It was so personal to me. It was so like, it was 8 or 9 years of studying purely for myself. Like I had this belief that you didn't make money from healing. Like that was not ever a business idea. I was in the health food industry. I had like a distribution business. I had what was my business after? A wedding planner. I was a wedding and events planner. So I'd had like some successful businesses, but healing was just like, that's my passion. That's my obsession. Like every second it was a documentary, a book, another certification, but it was just for me. And the transition into making that into a business has felt icky, if I'm going to be honest. It's felt icky because it was like I'm having to I'm sharing what feels true and all of these things that I've learned, but then comes the sales side of it and the marketing side of it, and it required a different version of me to make it into a business that could. In other businesses, I could scale because I wasn't emotionally connected to it, whereas this is like really close. So that's probably been, it's taken a lot of courage to keep going. There's been so many parts of me that are like, I just want to keep learning for myself. I'm sick of the industry and the world. I just want to keep learning for myself. But I keep stepping forward because I know that what I've learned and what I've uncovered and what I've gone through and what I'm doing is slightly different to everything else, and it's needed. And so it's that courage to keep, I guess, being who I am and sharing that. It feels vulnerable at times because it's like it is so close to my heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's that dance because you care so much and you take it so personally that you put so much into it, and at the same time it's still about you. Like I remember I had this conversation with my accountant once. She's like, so Cody, what's the next course that you've invested in this month? And I laughed with her. I'm like, we both know that my business is just to fund my personal development and my own growth, right? And she's like, sure, Cody. And it was also like that defining moment of like, holy fuck, I'm not taking business seriously because I'm only using it to fund my own growth. It was this moment of starting to recognize, yes, I care about all of these people. Yes, I'm creating this thing, but I'm also playing at a certain level just to fund my personal development, just to create that deeper sense of like understanding for me, because that's what I was mostly yearning for. It was like, how do I understand all of these humans that fucking trigger me and all of those things? I'm a little bit weird sometimes. Every client that I have asks me if I'm on the spectrum, and I'm like, I don't know, who cares? Just let me.
Like, I haven't Googled it.
And then I have clients that are like ADHD coaches, and they're like, so Cody, are we going to talk? And I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah. It's serving me.
It's serving me. You're working with me, so clearly it's working for me.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. It's like this dance that people go through as well, and they have that inflection point of recognizing, it's been for me, but it's also like something that can actually serve the world. And it's very much that maturing moment to be able to go, I've been playing at this level, and I know that if I was to actually fully step into this and face off with myself, to be able to see in all of the hate and all of the judgment and all of the things at a higher level, then it can actually create waves, go from creating ripples to creating waves in the world. And that's one of the things that, especially when someone creates their own modality, that they face off with the most.
Yeah, because it feels special and unique, and it's that thing of like, it feels like magic, and it's sharing that with people, but it's sharing it with the right people. There's so many things when it's close to home, whereas if you're doing it just for mass, if the scale and the goal from the beginning is mass, the way that you would set it up and structure it would be completely different. When it comes from your heart and it starts small and it builds organically, there is those progressions of self that you go through. And yeah, it's reframing, it's reframing the impact that it can create versus I'm not sure if I want to go big. And I sat down with Lewis for coffee yesterday, and we were talking about this, and he's like, what do you want? And what's your goals? And what's your income goals? And I was like, I don't know, man, like life is so good. Like I do want to scale and I do want to grow, but also life is so good and there's no urgency. And so past versions of me have run off fight or flight, and fight or flight is the most, socially acceptable. It's people, idolize you when you're running off fight or flight. You're so productive. You get so much done. Like boom, boom, boom. We're moving, we're going fast, but I don't want to live dysregulated. So there is a slower path there because I'm unwilling to sacrifice the life that I've created and where I've got to. So it's a balancing act, because I find people that are like scale, 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 but then there's this missing part of like, but also, are you going to feel good when you get to that version of yourself? And also, how do you feel inside in the process?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, I spent too long sacrificing and thinking we'll just hustle. Like one more launch, one more day, one more week, one more push. I could hear myself fucking saying it out loud to people, like, it's just a busy week. Once we do this, then, when then. And I was like, oh, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm not actually living, like Aaruka, my modality means paradise within. And I was like, there's not paradise within right now. So I had to figure out, how do I keep going and pushing forward with business but with that feeling of like, I get to be me, I get to wake up today, and what's today going to hold in this excitement and passion, but that's calm, that's not erratic, and we need a launch and I'm behind and they're doing this. And so that is a slower process.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's 100% the questions that Lewis would ask as well, because his, the modality he creates is like the inspired life. So it's all about like purpose. So it's like, that's the frame of like what he creates for people, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I was like, I'm living my purpose. Like I already achieved my purpose was, and he said to me, what's your next purpose? And I said, I'm not sure yet, because my purpose was be the example.
Yeah.
Because when I first started, the things that have happened to me in my past are quite horrific. And everywhere that I looked, it was every doctor, every website, every book was like, you can manage it, but these people still struggle. They struggle forever. And I was like, absolutely not. That's not going to be me. My mission is to be the example that you can heal from anything and you can fully come out the other side and live a life that is just unrecognizable from where you've come from. That was the mission, and that's where I'm living. And he's like, so what's the next mission? And I'm like, well, obviously spreading that with the world, but also slowly, because I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Many people who come into the industry, they build a business based on, what looks good rather than what feels good. And I've definitely been through that phase pre-kids. I was like, all right, let's create this huge business. It's going to be as big as possible. We're going to scale to the moon. And then I have kids and I'm like, oh, no, it's just going to feel good.
Yes.
It doesn't need to, like, if it looks good, that's a bonus. But if it feels good, if I enjoy the process, if I love the people that I'm working with in that season that evolves over a period of time, if I get my growth from it, if I contribute to the world, then that's going to enliven me so much more than creating some external mission of the thing that's outside of me. And it's been very much that unending initiation into whatever the next level of that is. And you see the initiation that occurs when you create a modality. As an example, we've got so many clients that have created modalities over the time, and the initiation of that, but then also the initiation, which was like my next question that I was going to ask you, was like, how do you then journey your students not doing it to the standard at which you do it? Because that's been like something that I consistently journey with the modality that we've created as well. It's like they do it to a certain degree, and I just like see it all, and I'm like kind of cringing and glitching sometimes, and I'm like,
it's not right.
I do have a little bit of a control issue with that. So
I was just about to say, that is control. That is a release of control. Yeah. I think there's two parts. There's the ethical, like you actually need to make sure that they get it and that they're doing at least the sequence of it correctly. But the thing with Aaruka is that it's quite intuitive. So there's maybe like 50 tools that they need to know which one to use at which time, because especially with people with trauma, the way that their brain has developed to cope can present so differently. Two people can have the same experience, but one is like chronically dissociated, has been completely numb and not in their body, and another one can be completely stuck in fight or flight, burnout, breakdown, psychosis, like same trauma, different presentation. And so the way that we actually access the trauma and heal the trauma, for some people, they're like, their mind goes blank and like, I don't know, can't see anything, can't visualize anything. They're shut down mentally. So we go in through the body. And if there's clients who are blocked off to the body, we start with the mind, but we always integrating both sides. And so it's really difficult because it's an intuitive modality, and it's getting them to understand which tool to use at which time in the right way, at the right time, in the right order. And so the way that I do that is I've had the modality for 8 years. And so when I first launched, what I did was anytime a student had a question, I'd add another unit. And I just kept bulking it out. And then eventually 2 years ago, I redid the entire thing, upgraded it. But there's a process, there's quizzes at the end of every unit. There's quite a detailed written assessment that they have to do. There's also practical sessions, and then they have to have a phone call and walk us through their practice sessions. Okay, they presented with this. What did you do? Then what did you do? And you can understand really quickly whether someone's got it or not, like whether they've actually got it down pat. And to this day, 160 students, only one person I've had to like go back and forth for them to really get it. Everyone else, I'm like, oh, You've got it. You've got it. You've got that process down pat. But I know that they're not going to, when they go out there in the world, there's people that are going out and they've studied other things as well. And when they go out and they start practicing, they blend it all together. And that's something that I just have to surrender to, and something that I just have to, there's some certifications where they have in writing that you can't blend it with other modalities, things like that, but people fucking do it anyway. So I want them to just understand the really deep core principles about healing and how it works and why it works, so that they've got that base understanding, so that anything that they're doing, they're thinking, oh, okay, what's that working on? Where's that going to go? What's the outcome? Like, they're actually thinking ahead. That's what I try to teach them, is that logical but also intuitive. Yeah. A hard balance.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's the hardest thing for most people as well, is they do things, they feel like they do things more intuitively than they do. I remember, have you read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow?
No.
He basically says that intuition is just really a process that we go through, that we do things based on patterns. And intuition is less about us being intuitive and just doing the innate patterns and processes that we do because we've seen something like that before and we recognize where to go. But it's less less feeling based and more process based. And the biggest issue that most people, especially when they're creating modality, is how do they turn that thing that they just do naturally into something that someone else can then do? How do I turn that into a visual model that allows people to be able to see the distinctions around almost like the decision tree that's occurring that's playing out in your mind of like, if this, then we go down here and then we go into this part of the process and then we go into this part of the process. And it often in the back of people's mind, I just see that meme where the guy's just like, the conspiracy theory guys, like moving all the things around.
Like a beautiful mind, like writing all the numbers on the wall. I feel like that's sometimes.
Yeah, and then out the front, it's just like, just a question that you ask or something. It's just something simple, but behind everything, it's just like this, and all connecting up with the dots. And that's why I think so many people who, neurodivergent do so well at coaching is because they're consistently connecting up all of the dots.
Yes.
I would love to know. This is something that I do argue with people about online sometimes.
Let's get into an argument.
What's the difference between neurodivergence and developmental trauma? Because they have many of the same symptoms.
Yeah. I think that it's just another label that we're putting on something. So many people are like, I'm neurodivergent, ADHD, autistic, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like another way to describe something that's they're experiencing. It's another way to describe a pattern that their brain has, like the way that their brain is functioning is don't get me wrong. I think some people can be born, obviously, with brains that are, functioning in a different way, but most of the time it's just trauma. It's just that they've been conditioned to think that way, that those patterns are serving them a purpose. They're protecting them. I think that we've got so many labels and terms for things and not enough solutions. It's like, cool, you're neurodivergent. How do you manage that? How does that affect you? Is there blessings in that? What's the positives and what are the negatives? And why are they negatives and how can we reframe that? But also, how can we actually go back into the source of where that pattern was created so that we can shift it? I think it just becomes another, like, people don't understand me because I'm neurodivergent. Like, it just becomes another kind of category that we put ourselves into. And it can be the same with anything that someone, you know what I mean? Like it's what you make of it. It's how you use it. Like you said earlier, I don't know if we were recording or not, but like, people say, oh, you have ADHD or you clearly have this. It's like, yeah, but that's a symptom or that's a pattern or that's like a way of being that's a result of something that's happened and it's serving you and it served you in the past and it might still be serving you. So you don't need to resolve that right now, but it's always coming from somewhere. I've had debates about like this. Are we born a certain way, like good or bad, or are we born a certain way or are we conditioned? And I think it's like 10%. You're born with as like a version, a little part of you that's always going to be there, but it's like 90% conditioning and 90% what your nervous system state was, the information your body was feeding up to your mind, the beliefs you created. It's just conditioning.
Yeah, I love it. It's always an interesting conversation. And, because when you look at like developmental trauma, it's like if we have developmental trauma that occurs before we have conscious memory, so gestation through up to 18 months to 2 years, we don't remember anything that's occurred, but we have a certain pattern which plays out. And the argument that I will often get into is like, how is that different to someone who's born neurodivergent because it's been their entire life? How do we not know that there was just trauma there? And again, coming back to the label thing, it's just a different label. And most people don't look at the benefit of labels. A label creates hope for people because then they feel like, oh, okay, cool. This is not so abnormal that I'm completely fucked. Creates a level of hope for them so that then they can actually then create a certain level of certainty within themselves so that then they can start to begin to shift beyond that. And again, it becomes that level of crutch for them to be able to justify specific behaviors that may be unresourceful, or I'm just ADHD, or I'm just traumatized, or I'm just this, rather than actually coming back to shifting beyond that. And people will fight to the death, especially in the comments.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to keep their labels, to be able to keep their trauma, to be able to keep all of those things. And how do you, as someone who's creating change in the world, support the people that are ready and hold the compassion for the people that are in their projection of holding on to their labels?
Yeah, I just speak directly to it. I just say like, okay, validating that you have the cluster of symptoms that makes up complex PTSD. You have the cluster of symptoms that is the list of ADHD. Like validating, you've got those symptoms, you've got those patterns, you've got those behaviors, you fit into that category. But there's a difference between having a diagnosis that is like, I have complex trauma, I have PTSD, and getting that and going, this is my community and I'll live here forever, and going, I have complex PTSD. How do you heal complex PTSD? That's my mindset, is like, cool. I remember when I got diagnosed from a psychiatrist with dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. And there was a moment of like, oh, this makes sense. I get this, but I'd already done a level of work to go, why do I have two personalities? How can I blend them together? Straight away, I was into like, all right, how do we resolve that diagnosis? What's happening? Why did my brain split? Who's the two versions? How can I get to know them better? How are they protecting me? What are they holding? How do I blend them together in a safe way to become self? And so it's this mindset shift from the diagnosis as being, this is who you are and this is the little pool that you're going to live in for the rest of your life. And cool, that describes where I'm at. But how do people heal from that? And that was my first question when all of my big trauma resurfaced, was Google, like, how do you heal from the trauma that I don't know if we talk about trauma on this, but how do you heal from this type of trauma? It was straight away like, how do you overcome it? And not enough people have that mentality of overcoming because they're stuck in the victim essentially. And they're stuck in that because they've got so many memories, most likely, where they were the victim. So they're stuck literally in the past because, I think about a traumatic memory as a memory it's open, it's raw, it's like it's constantly being reactivated with triggers, it's being poked because it couldn't close off and process because there was too much emotion, there was too much confusion, we couldn't process it, we couldn't close it off, and we keep it open for survival and to protect us. And so if we have all these memories that say you're a victim and they're still open and we're still constantly feeling that frequency of victimhood, of course we're going to be stuck there. We're constantly being reminded of these past experiences. And it's really hard to pull yourself out of that. And it's one of those things that I'm like, I don't know how to teach that because I just had that in me. I would feel the victim and then I'd be like, that's enough of that. How do we heal it? And that's just been my personality. That's just been in me since I was a child. So I have so much compassion for those people because I'm like, oh, that's the worst place to be stuck at. But also healing is possible. And the only way that I've been able to sort of work through that is to just be the example, to just say, I know it's shit. And that's why I share my story online. I say this, and this happened to me. And here's where I am now, to be the evidence, to be the expander, to be the example. And, you know, so many people come at me saying, oh, you're still stuck in your trauma because you're talking about it. I'm like, no. I'm telling you, healing's possible. Like, if I can do it, you can do it too. That was kind of the mentality, and that has helped a lot of people. I have people messaging me saying, you made me feel like healing from my trauma is actually possible now after listening to your life story. I'm going to book a session. I'm going to do the work. And they're my favorite people. I love them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's very much that journey of, you know, when you step into going beyond creating a community, you know, create a community, you have all your clients, and stepping into what we call like the movement leader, when you start to actually be the embodiment of your message and you keep deepening the work and you create leaders around you to be able to bring your work to the world. That's a massive paradigm shift for people to be able to go through. It's a very raw and vulnerable thing to be able to go through as well, because you're putting your work in there to allow people to go out and continue it and then butcher it in some instances, or do it less optimally than you would like.
I've been lucky in that way. Like, I've got a few that are like,
yes, and that's you perfectly illustrated the key point of that, is recognizing that it's less about rules and more about principles. Because a modality is a modality because it highlights specific principles to be able to follow rather than rules. As soon as it's rules, it becomes too systematized and too constricting and too limiting.
To work with an individual person and their suffering, yeah.
And that becomes that core distinction that people step into when they're starting to create that movement. It's all about starting to develop more leaders rather than creating necessarily healing. Yeah, there's healing that the leaders are then creating, but it's not necessarily about you, and then it's going to bring up different things. And the only way that really starts to go much more beyond you is by you creating all the initiations of you working with all of those leaders. Most people get stuck in the validation and the significance they get from being the person that creates the transformation, right?
Yes, that was me, 100%. Yeah.
And there's that big distinction. It's the shift from doing it from significance to contribution, knowing that you're never actually going to see the true impact of what you create. And the one thing that I love about the work that we do is the times where I do get the feedback from people when it's just like, oh my God, my life has changed. I worked with that person over there and it was so amazing. And they went through it and they took me through this thing. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. I get it sometimes. But then other times you're more of the face of like the face of the projections as part of it as well. And it almost becomes that level of initiation into the new level of embodiment to be able to have that move through you for all of the people that you're leading at the same time as well, because for them to be able to then birth their own modalities, for them to be able to create their own things beyond that, using your tools as a foundation to be able to create what their unique expression of it is, recognizing that, you know, there's going to be some people that are going to be perfect for your modality, and then something else is going to be perfect for someone else based on what their soul expression is, based on their journey.
Yes.
It becomes this depth of initiation that we start to face off with, which is like this full-hearted requirement of putting our heart into the thing that we're putting into the world.
And a complete ego death.
Yeah, the complete ego death.
Yeah.
And the inability to avoid the vulnerability of it.
Yeah.
Because it almost forces more of you to come out. What's been your journey recently with that?
I think that was opening the online clinic. So I was just seeing I had my calendar open, I was seeing clients, and then I had all of my students who were seeing their own clients, and it was having people with complex trauma, personality disorders, psychosis, all those sorts of things, and trusting that I could hand them over to somebody else, and with complete trust, and say, I know this person can help you. Oof, that was hard. And so I did like an intensive day training for anyone that was thinking that they wanted to work specifically with that category. A lot of sexual trauma as well was what I specialized in. And yeah, I did an intensive day training, and at the end of that got a bit of an understanding of like who was good, who was ready, but it was still, there was a bit of like, oh, I'll just see some clients. Oh, no, I won't. Oh, I'll just see someone like calendar on, calendar off situation. But it was getting feedback from people saying, I saw Mel and it was incredible. I saw Sophie and for 3 sessions, and I can feel that I don't have complex trauma anymore. Like there was these feedbacks and like, okay, it's working. It's safe. It's kind of like setting up that next level and then stepping away. And, you know, I'm taking more and more steps away as I can because I want to be able to guide, not to control, and to actually to step away and live my own life as well, because I'm 36 and, you know, I spent like 34-ish, 33 years pretty much like suffering deeply. So it was like, how do I continue to spread that magic, but not at a cost to myself? And I think it's like, I often think about what you just said. I often think about there's so much happening that I just don't even know. There's all these little therapists out there that are talking to people and that are having sessions, and these people that are telling other, and it's this like wave of healing that's happening, and you have nothing to do with it. And I actually think that's the greatest feeling, and just knowing that it's there. But I don't think that you can have that feeling and fully land in that and accept that until you get your ego out of the way. Because otherwise the ego wants to know what's happening, who's transforming, how many sessions are happening, wants all the stats, all the information to get the constant validation. And it's human nature to want validation. I still smile every time I get a testimonial or someone saying, I saw Sophie and it was incredible. I'm like, yay. But it's not, I don't need it to keep going anymore. Whereas there was periods where I needed that to keep going. And if you need that, your vision and mission is about you, not the world, and not about the people that you're helping. And so, yeah, I had to like go through that with the clinic and setting up the clinic and turning my calendar off for good and saying, I'm not seeing one-on-one anymore. Here's the 4 people that I trust the most. Pick one. That was really hard. That was a really hard transition. But I did it through identifying that it wasn't serving me anymore. I was like, I want to run trainings, more intense trainings and events and things where I can connect with people. I can't do that if I keep seeing one-on-one clients. So the next version of me who wanted to take that message even bigger couldn't keep doing these behaviors.
How do you support someone who's in that place where they're recognizing that they've done a lot of healing, they've created shifts, but they have fear stepping into what that next level is, whether it's closing off their diary or whatever it is. So higher glass ceilings, not healing-based glass ceilings.
The fear will always be there. It's not going to go away. I think the thing that I always try to identify is like the fear's there for a reason, and it's there to tell you to slow down, and it's there to protect you. So what's it protecting you from? And there's always something. It doesn't have to be a big trauma, but there's something there. There's a subconscious belief there that says, if this happens, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. And it comes from the most weird and wacky places sometimes. Like, I can't even remember what the block was, but my last one led me to like this random ass moment in high school that wasn't traumatic, but it formed me. And so I think I'm a true believer in that all of those glass ceilings, that fear is just an indication that there's a little something there to go a little bit deeper. It's uncovering what you're protecting yourself from. And sometimes it's just literally, you know, at some stages of business, it's if I take it to the next level, I'm going to get hate online. And if I get hate online, that feels so scary to me because like I'm, you know, sensitive to rejection, whatever it is. Like there's going to be something there. And then you get over that and then you get to the next level, but there's another thing that happened. And it's, in my opinion, it's always linked to the past. If there's a little bit of fear, but you can move forward, that's just like a natural little like, oh, this is kind of exciting, kind of scary. But if there's a lot of fear coming up, there's that saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical. If it's like intense and overwhelming, it's coming from somewhere always. Like there's just it's just always coming from somewhere, and it's going to be the most random thing that you don't expect, but it's always coming from somewhere.
What's one of those pieces that's kind of evident for you that you're afraid to be seen in at the moment then?
Honestly, because I can't not answer honestly, it's being a bitch.
Being a bitch. Ooh,
yeah.
Good.
As being a bitch because I've been studying for 15 years and I've watched the healing industry go from like purple-haired ladies that do it from their lounge room to like an entire industry. And I just use that as an example because that was my first ever healing session. Bless her, she was a lovely lady. But I've watched it become this like massive industry. And I've been going deep. Like I'm talking every spare second. I'm reading an article or I'm like listening to an audiobook or I'm reading a book or I'm watching a documentary or I'm going and trying. I've tried so many modalities and if something works, I go and study it. I've gone so deep that I watch people online and I watch the information that's out there, like do this nervous system regulation tool and you're going to heal all your trauma. And I'm like, fuck, which is also why I got myself off Instagram. But I have some opinions around how we heal. And it's that kind of that balance between telling people how it works without using other things as a contrast and seeming like a bitch to be like, NLP is cool, but like it's not going to heal all your trauma.
Don't look at our ads.
Are they NLP? Or?
No, I throw rocks at NLP.
What's that?
I throw rocks at NLP sometimes.
Oh, okay, yeah. And you know what? Like I did, and you know, it comes from an ad campaign that I created that got taken down because my marketing agency said, I've never seen so much hate on a single ad in my entire life. And I was like, just take it down.
Yeah.
Because there's that part that wants to like call things out. And then there's that part that is like, oh, I don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to pull other people down. I shouldn't have to pull other people down to get to where I want to get to. It's that's the constant battle at the moment. And I feel like lately I've been edging more towards a lot of my podcast episodes. I speak to it, but they don't show up on social media. They're for my podcast audience who are like obsessed listening and they're like, yes, yes, yes. So it's getting that message out to the wider audience without feeling like I'm pulling down something else to get there.
Yeah. What's one of the opinions that you have that's most edgy then?
Oh my God. Most edgy. I mean, I think it's just that most modalities in the healing industry. I don't know if this is edgy anymore. There's a lot of opinions now. That's an opinion. I think it's that most modalities aren't suitable for trauma, for complex trauma at all. And they're trying to treat complex trauma and it's actually just like such a different ball game. And people are like, no, it's simple and you do this and it's the same and all trauma is the same. And, you know, I hear people say like, all trauma is just trauma. It's just what happens inside you, blah, blah, blah. Like I think Gabor Mate really fueled a lot of that. Like all trauma is equal. It's fucking not. It's absolutely not. Like I'm going to use a really brutal example, right? People come to me and say, you know, one lady said to me like, you know, I've heard all trauma is the same. And, you know, I feel like me being touched by my cousin who was the same age as me, it feels the same as if I had something horrific happen. And actually what happens in the body, like the level of dissociation, the level of like of terror, of shock, of fear that happens when, you know, you're being raped as a child by an adult versus having another child touch you is actually two really different levels of trauma. What happens in the body, how the body functions, the way that we cope with that, the personality traits that we develop as part of that. Like there is a scale and no one's willing to say there's a scale because we're just like, everyone's got trauma. We all fit into this little box and like your trauma's valid and my trauma's valid and it's all like, you know, it's all the same. It's not the same. The level of dissociation that is required of you to fully leave your body in a really intense traumatic experience is different. It's a different level of dissociation. It's a different level of coping with those different experiences. So I think this message has been filtered down and it's making people feel confident in working with trauma, not realizing that there is a spectrum.
Yeah, we talk about it in the work that we do. We talk about trauma and big T trauma. It's like
little T, big T, yeah.
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 There's certain trauma which is just like a defensive compensation. And yes, like I do kind of get where Gabor Mate is coming from, especially in, I think it was Hungry Ghost book or something. He's talking about his addiction to
the realm of Hungry Ghost or something.
Buying CDs. He's like unconsciously buying CDs because of all the trauma that he had because he grew up in the Holocaust and all of those things. And he's like, well, that's a societally appropriate version. And then he's working with addicts in the next moment on the street that are like stealing and destroying everyone around them just to get their fix. And I definitely see that there's a spectrum of those things. There's the societally appropriate trauma that people fall into and addictions over here. And then there's the non-socially appropriate ones. And I don't like when people say that trauma can be healed completely, like complex trauma can be healed by doing timeline therapy, as an example. I think that's beautiful for certain experiences over here, and big T trauma over here requires different tools. That's my view. Absolutely.
And I think what you were saying there is like the expressions of trauma, because what's super interesting is that someone can have, Gabor Mate's documentary was really interesting because there was people that were homeless that had grown up in homes where they weren't actually abused in like a really intense way. They weren't, being physically abused. They weren't being raped or molested or, neglected. There was one guy on there that had really rich parents that emotionally neglected him. And they was talking about, the trajectory of where emotional neglect can take you can be a really, really hard, bad path, and you can end up in addiction. And then you can have a trauma history like mine. And I've never had any issues with addiction, but I was high functioning, using fight or flight to like get me through. I found different ways to cope, which was having multiple personalities, repressing trauma. The way that I coped with it was very different. And I have plenty of people that have had the same history of me that are hospitalized, that are not here anymore. So the way that the person copes with it is also that 10% that I was talking about earlier. I think it's also who they are. And like how their current, there's so many factors in that. There's the protective factors, if you've got one abusive parent but one good parent versus two abusive parents, like there's so many variables. But I think that we treat where they're at, not kind of what's happened. And if they seem high functioning, we assume that we can work with them. But actually some high functioning people are the most traumatized people that I know.
Yeah.
And that functioning is only going to serve them for a certain point until they hit burnout, psychosis. Like so many high-functioning people end up with psychosis and like, I have no idea why. But it's because they've used that pathway and to feel like they're overcoming it. So I feel like it's this, if people understood that spectrum, if people understood the cause and effect, if people understood the different ways it presents and the different ways that, just because someone's looks successful doesn't mean that they don't have intense complex trauma underneath and that they're not suffering greatly. We can't just categorize people based off what it looks like on the outside, because for most of my life, people would have no idea what was happening. So I think that's where, if you have good training, you learn to identify behaviors, words, patterns, things that they say. Like I have had women come into me and have written in their notes in capital letters, something really big has happened to her. She's not aware of it yet, but something really big has happened to her. I can feel it and know it and see it and understand it. 2 years with this one client before she actually revealed it and before she actually uncovered it, because you can pick up those patterns and that's what you can teach. But everyone's like, all trauma's equal. So people are like, I got this. I'll run a breath work and get you to breathe into sympathetic activation and fuck you up and get all these emotions out and you'll be healed because you purged your emotions. It's like, no. No. Breathwork's a really good tool.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, it's one tool. Like for me, breathwork, energy healing, so many modalities are like tune-ups. Like now that I feel like I've got to a really good point, if I'm just like wanting to let off some steam because my partner was just being a bit of a dick or whatever, I just want to scream into a pillow, I just want to let some steam off, or I've had heaps of people coming at me and I'm all busy and I want to shift some energy.
Yeah.
I can recalibrate, but it's not the deeper work. That's not actually healing anything. It's just this getting the surface level off.
Yes, I have my rants about rage releases too. Don't worry.
We're very aligned. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but it's so far. I've got the same mindset.
Yeah. I I have clients that run rage release stuff like around the country and stuff, and I'm like, just remember, that's just the surface. It's good to be able to access your rage, but it's about everything that's underneath it. Until you get to the grief or the disappointment or whatever it is that's underneath it, nothing changes. Going to look good on Instagram, so keep doing it, and
you'll get an epic reel.
And remember,
it's super performative, but and there's performance, and then there's healing, and healing's more quiet.
Yeah.
It's more vulnerable, and so people aren't as willing to share it, and it doesn't look the way that people expect. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I do have people, they have those releases, but they're not just having a rage release. They're having a rage release because they are deep in their subconscious in a memory that is requiring them to release that rage as part of processing that memory and closing it off before we move on to the part where we shift the subconscious beliefs around their identity and fully close the circle. We're not just releasing rage for the fun of it. We're doing it intentionally. And I think that's where same thing. I've been to women's festivals where it's like rage workshops, and they're the busiest ones. And it's all the women like stamping and screaming, and it's fun, but it's also like, but why?
Yeah.
Why the rage?
Yeah.
Where the rage? Where's it coming from? Like, why, where? I think that's the thing that people are missing. And honestly, it pisses me off because Instagram is like, it's desire focused, it's performative, it's visual. And a lot of what I do is not visually aesthetic. And so you just rely on screenshot testimonials for people to be like, this was incredible. But it's not those ones that are performative. I don't know if you've seen, there's one called Vadma that's just like popping off. And it's that guy that does like the pineal gland and people like shaking and like there's a lot happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm writing a book at the moment, my next book, and one of the main sections of it is just about like spiritual bypassing. And when we get into the cathartic release-based work, that's what we become most addicted to. It's like we become addicted to sitting with the medicine or doing the big breath work or doing the big Kundalini activation without actually getting to the deeper levels of actually getting into our heart on an even deeper level, because it becomes this performative nature for us to be seen as the spiritual person and doing this spiritual work and creating identities around that without actually getting into our heart on an even deeper level. And that's one of the things that I see is becoming more and more prevalent with the current use of Instagram and the current maturing of the industry at the same time. It's like that's where it's kind of moving as it matures more and more and more, because it's like, it's great when it's on Instagram. You probably don't see as many men's coaches as I do, but they all do the same thing. They're all crying on Instagram so that they can show their emotions because it gets the most engagement. And at the same time, I'm like, fuck.
I need to cry on Instagram.
I think, fuck, can we go beyond this performative nature of vulnerability and actually like get into our heart rather than just doing it in a performative way? I get that it's important for men to be able to see that on Instagram, especially for men, based on the suppression that they have and the inability to be able to access their emotions. And at the same time, I yearn for more depth from those people.
Depth is my personality. I can't not, if we're not going deep, we're not going at all. Yeah. I just was talking to a friend this morning saying like similar thing. It just reminded me when you're saying that of like, are you okay day? Which is like a beautiful sentiment, but I want a t-shirt that says, are you okay? And what are you doing about it? Because I feel like we're getting good at like high level awareness and identifying. And yes, men can safely, they should be able to express their emotions. But I think that I actually feel like there is an evolvement of people kind of, they're evolving and going, okay, cool. Like, but what else? But people are going to come around and want the depth. They're going to go, okay, we've done the breath work, we've done the psychedelics. And, you know, when you're speaking about the I guess like holotropic breath work or psychedelics or, you know, people are going and sitting in ceremony and yes, it's addictive because you get such a good feeling from it, right? Like you're moving up. I don't know if you've read any of David Hawkins' books, Dr. David Hawkins.
Yeah.
You're moving up those levels of consciousness and you're like tapping into this like open, expansive soul consciousness feeling that it goes away because you haven't actually shifted anything and you're human. You've tapped into that. But like sometimes there's some changes on a cellular, on a brain level, but most of the time not. You've just gone into consciousness, but your subconscious is still programmed with all the same shit. So you leave the ceremony and you come back into your body and then you see your mum and you're like, oh, I'm triggered again because you didn't actually, the psychedelic experience didn't heal all of that those past wounds and traumas and subconscious beliefs. You're still the same person. You might feel different because of that experience. And when you think back on it, you also get a little like boost of that feeling. But most of the time you're just living from your 95% subconscious programming. So you're still the same person.
Yeah, we talk about it as the ascension-descension paradox. You can only truly ascend to a normalized new state based on the descension that you've done. When you access higher states, that's great. But what's your normal state? What's your normal state? Do you actually increase your normal state over a period of time by actually descending further into yourself so that rises, so that both the floor and the ceiling of what your normal state or your window of tolerance in trauma speak is rising over a period of time rather than just going, oh my God, I have this enlightening experience. I have this ecstatic experience. And then I go back to all of my trauma and just sit in it.
Yes. And if you're vibrating at that frequency, like the lowest end of the spectrum is shame, and you're living in shame, and then you go and you have this experience that is at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there's a huge gap. And I feel like people do this on a micro level as well. It's like, how do I move from like guilt and shame into feeling a bit of acceptance and love? And, courage is the baseline where we move from negative to positive. How do I get that feeling? A glass of wine. I have a glass of wine and nothing matters. I'm fully accepting, but you pay a debt. You do. Every time you skip it, like he talks about this in his book, there's a debt to be repaid because you haven't actually integrated and gone through those levels. And when you show someone that map, they're like, fuck, I have to go from like guilt and apathy into fear and then into like, and there's these levels that we have to go through, and it's a bit disheartening to know that it's quite negative until you get to that line of courage and start to tip over. So we bypass it. We take the medication that numbs us, or we have the wine, we have the chocolate, we have the drugs, we have the whatever it is to skip it for temporary relief. I read a study the other day that said that 85% of people, if given the opportunity to do something for a short period of time that would create long-lasting permanent change or a quick fix, 85% of people said that they would rather the temporary immediate relief. And I'm like, that adds up.
And that's why we have a job.
Yeah. That's why it can be hard though, because you trying to get people out of that like hacking the system mindset. Oh, if I go into a breath work and I elevate myself, or because they can be forms of elevating, like it's so much easier to just elevate your state with something outside of yourself. It's way harder to go inside and look at why you're stuck in the low states and why the shame, where the shame, where the guilt. How do we actually move up through those layers? And it's a longer process. And so people kind of like, one day I'll just go to energy healing today.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on for today. What's the best way for people to find you?
Probably social media, website. It's I am Jessica Eller is my social media, and website's jessicaeller.com.au.
Epic.
All under my name. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
It has been fun. Thanks.